I want to talk about belonging. So, there's a lot of people in the world, and there's a very tragic common story that I see. You have someone who they've just been seeking their entire life just to feel like they belong somewhere, doing everything they can to fit in, and no matter what they do, they feel like it's never enough. You found the person who finds the wrong crowd. We all hear it. Man, I fell in with the wrong crowd. And people often with innocent um, intentions winding up in situations where they're just getting hurt and they're just getting, their naivete is being used or hurt, or they're just, it's like there's a scene from the movie Jesus Revolution where the a woman is out doing drugs with the group, and her sister just collapses and starts choking on her own vomit, and no one knows what to do because they're all so high they can't figure it out, and her sister almost dies. And she's sitting there asking herself, what am I doing? Right? The need to belong is so powerful, so important. It's almost as if people would be willing to give up their life to obtain it. But the Bible says, what good is it to gain the world yet lose your soul? There is, what was his name? There's a Super Bowl star that came and spoke at our church. And he said something that profoundly impacted me. He described a scene just after he had won a Super Bowl, and he's sitting there in this fancy hotel, and he's looking down at the crowd that's gathered below, and they're all partying and celebrating him, and they're all cheering him on. And this entire crowd of people, they're all gathered there for him. And he said that was the most broken and hopeless moment he ever had in his life. Sitting there after having achieved his dreams, looking down at that crowd and feeling alone. You see, often we try to find our sense of belonging in the wrong place. When I was a kid, around fifth grade, I got severely, severely bullied. I remember leading up to that year, my parents had moved around a lot, and I didn't have great social skills. I didn't have siblings to argue with and figure my stuff out? It's like I didn't learn those hard lessons on how to socialize and really and truly how to fit in and how to be likable. And so when fifth grade came along, I was, as my father put it, I became the scapegoat of the class. People would call me weird, creepy, stupid, autistic. Um, and they said all of these mean names about me. And I remember one day the kid grabs a milk carton, runs up to me, and splashes it all over my front. And everyone points at me and says, Skylar peed himself. And for every, that entire year, I was booger eater, I was pee pee pants, I was the weird kid. I was spoken so much death over. I was always the last one picked um, for PE. I think it's like a vague memory, but I'm pretty sure I remember someone telling me to kill myself. I had so much hate towards me. And what I realized, sort of looking at this crowd, was I saw a bunch of people who were just trying to fit in, and they pointed at me and they reasoned, if we pick on Skylar and we all pick on Skylar, then we're not going to pick on each other. And so it's almost like I became that class's peace agreement. If we beat up Skylar, then we can get our anger and aggression out, and we don't have to beat up each other. And it was the most helpless feeling because I remember kids who literally saw, the kid would run up with a milk carton. People who literally saw him do it, gossiping about me and telling people that I peed myself in front of the entire school at the cafeteria. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. Horrible. And it was pervasive over the entire year. And I learned something at that age that would carry through for the rest of my life in a very dangerous way. What they unknowingly taught me was that I needed to perform and fit in to be accepted, and that if I don't, I'm in danger. What did that look like? That looked like people pleasing. Following that, I started getting physics books and, fancy science books from Michio Kaku and, uh, talking about the biography of Tesla, Thomas Edison. And I carried around these books that made me look smart, even though I barely read them. And people started to call me prodigy and genius. And I remember every time they called me that, my heart sank a little bit deeper. I started applying myself in school and getting good grades, and I would literally call myself the teacher's pet, and I made it my goal. I'm going to make every single teacher my friend. And I would follow my teachers around, and I would talk to them, and I would complain about the other kids. And I would say, oh, kids these days. I literally say that. And I did everything I could to fit in. I just wanted to belong. And it broke my heart that it worked. That was the thing that made me feel the saddest, was the fact that it worked. People called me prodigy and child genius and all this crap. And it, in something inside me, just broke. At the end of 6th grade, when I received perfect on all of my tax tests, it was one of the most hopeless moments of my life. And something mentally just snapped in a really depressing way, and I just completely gave up. Stopped trying in school, stopped doing anything after that. Because I realized everything I'm doing was a lie, and I am putting on a mask and trying to be someone I'm not because I want to be loved and accepted. And why am I not loved and accepted as I am? At that age, I was starting to pick up on something. I was starting to pick up on what is truly a biblical truth, which is that it is through grace, not by works. We can't earn it. We can't deserve it. We were created in love. And love is something that you can't take. It's not something that you can dress up and be worthy of. When Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, the first thing they did when they felt shame was they went and they covered themselves in fig leaves. They tried to cover their shame, right? And I think a lot of people along the way, we learn to cover our shame with a fancy job, a fancy title, um, more views, more clout, more, chasing this, chasing that, chasing this, chasing that, the drugs, the broken relationships, the wrong crowd, whatever it is, desperately, desperately trying to find a place to belong, yet knowing deep down that we can't get love that way. And it's that realization that's so tragic. You can't get love that way. Not for being talented, not for being smart, not for being successful, not for having a lot of money, not for owning a business or being a good employee even, not for being in a relationship, not from your partner, from your spouse. That sense of belonging is a hole that only Jesus Christ can fill. Really and truly. It's a hole that we don't have to earn. that in fact we can't earn. And when you let go of that, when you let go of the need to belong, the need to be accepted, and you simply accept that you do belong, that you are loved, and that you are accepted, life gets a whole lot easier. And the Bible says, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. You don't have to earn it. In fact, you can't. You don't have to be a prodigy to make someone proud. You don't have to have a lot of money to be a man. You don't have to look like a model on a magazine to be a woman that's worthy of love and care and respect. And so the point I'm hoping to drive in with this video is for this person who feels like they need to perform to fit in. I hope this hits you in an area where you realize, just a little bit at least, that you don't have to perform to fit in. You don't have to perform to fit in. I hope whoever watches this has a wonderful day. God bless you. And remember that you are enough and you were created by a God for a purpose, in love, with love, for good works, and that the world is a better place with you in it. Thank you for being here.